This instructional module will provide information on problem behaviors, functions of problem behaviors, applied behavior analysis, extraneous factors impacting problem behavior, interventions, conducting functional assessment, functionally equivalent behaviors, and it will also provide helpful resources that can be used to get more information about problem behavior.
What is applied behavior analysis, also known as ABA? The term ABA refers to the direct application of behavior change principles in everyday situations and settings. Horner describes ABA as the application of behavior principles to produce socially significant changes in behavior. ABA implies an interest in understanding behavior and its functional relationship to environmental factors. ABA also focuses on what the learner does, behavior and setting, and events preceding and following the behavior. The principles of ABA will help you understand the way behavior functions, the environmental factors that influence it, and how this knowledge may be used in designing interventions. There is always a reason why students behave the way they do. They are trying to obtain or gain attention or tangibles. Maybe they are trying to escape or avoid a situation, or they're trying to obtain or avoid sensory conditions. We also have to keep in mind other factors that may influence behaviors. These factors are extraneous variables. Extraneous variables include setting events, events that occur early in time and influence the value reinforcement. Examples of setting events include hunger, illness, medication, boredom, and fatigue. Anteceding events are internal states or conditions that cue or trigger behavior. They include task demands or requests, seating arrangements, noise, or rough voices. As we look at these pictures of problem behaviors, we need to remember the behavior chain. The antecedent, what happens before the behavior itself, and the consequence, what happens after the behavior. We also need to keep in mind the principles of behavior, which includes reinforcement, punishment, and extinction, and the functions of behavior.
Problem behaviors can occur in the classroom, at home, and in public settings. Problem behaviors may consist of disruptive behavior, noncompliance, verbal or physical abuse, property destruction, and aggression.
Is that the sound you hear in a classroom that has children with problem behavior? Several things have to be considered. First, what should teachers know about behavior in order to prevent problem behavior? Second, how can we determine with certainty why problem behavior occurred? And finally, what should a teacher do to intervene and prevent further problem behavior?
Alright, so now that we know what applied behavioral analysis is, we understand principles of reinforcement and punishment and how this impacts behavior. We understand antecedent and consequences, understand functions. Why does someone engage in a behavior? To get something, to gather something, or automatic reinforcement? We're going to apply this information to understanding problem behaviors and how we should do an intervention. This process is called conducting a functional behavioral assessment. It involves 5 major steps: identifying the target behavior, conducting an interview, direct observations, determining function or why, and then developing an alternative.
There are 3 strategies for conducting a functional assessment. The first strategy is using the informant method, where the teacher interviews individuals or others who know the individual. We have the direct observation, where the teacher observes the individual in the environment that the problem behavior or problem behaviors are occurring and collects real data. And finally, we have a functional analysis, where a teacher manipulates possible variables to determine causal variables that are maintaining the problem behavior.
When conducting a functional behavioral assessment, we're going to be focusing on the interview, which is an informal method, and direct observation. So we're going to, for the use of this instructional module, condone the use of the functional assessment interview, which can be found in a Neal et al. Book. It's very parent and professional friendly. You don't have to be an expert in the area of problem behavior to use this form. It's very user friendly. It allows you to gather a very comprehensive assessment of the target individuals, where they live, setting, history, medications, all sorts of relevant information that may be surrounding the target issues. It's important for you to interview everyone that is very familiar with the situation, including the target person themselves, especially if they're able to communicate. They may be able to tell you, I'm bored, or that's very difficult for me. So this information is important. Once you gather information from your interview, it's going to give you an idea of what times of days or locations you need to be doing direct observations. The direct observation really validates the information that you gathered during your interview. Kind of says, yes, everything matches up, and it allows you to look what you see, the chain sequences of an antecedent occurs, the target problem behavior occurs, and then this is the consequence, like the child gets attention, or the child gets out of something, or maybe it's automatic reinforcement. So those two things combined allow you to develop a hypothesis statement. Johnny engages in target problem behavior X to get teacher attention. Now the functional analysis, that's an experiment. We do not condemn the use of that unless you've received explicit instruction by a qualified professional, so we're not going to talk about that, but be aware that that is a method underneath the functional behavioral self-assessment that is used to determine problem behavior function. Now once you know why, you can develop a functional equivalent. All that entails is you asking yourself, what would a person that this age or this target population do? Instead of screaming or hitting, oh, they would raise their hand. Instead of biting themselves, they would chew a piece of gum if it's automatic reinforcement. So you just ask yourself, or the team of professionals, what is the socially appropriate alternative? Then you're going to teach that as part of your intervention. Your intervention plan should consist of prompting, reinforcement strategies, and data monitoring. When you are teaching a new skill, you're going to teach your skill during the typical time a problem behavior would have occurred. Right before it occurs, you're going to prompt with the alternative. So you're going to use either verbal, visual, model, or physical prompt to ensure the learner engages in the alternative behavior. And you're going to want to use a little bit extra reinforcement so that they're going to choose using that alternative as opposed to the problem behavior, because it's worked well for them. You do not want them to revert back to that, so make it more worth their while to engage in it, and then you'll fade your reinforcement. Lastly, you always want to monitor progress. You want to see trends of the behavior going down, target behavior going up. So this is an overview of how to intervene with functions and dealing with problem behaviors.
Competency check. I'm going to ask 3 basic questions. After I ask each question, press pause on the instructional module and answer it out loud or in your head, and then continue by pressing play to see if you got the question correct. All right, let's go. Competency check number 1. Name 4 consequences of behavior. Positive reinforcement, getting something that will increase behavior. Negative reinforcement, removing something that will increase behavior. Positive punishment, adding something that will decrease behavior. Negative punishment, removing something that will decrease behavior. If you got those 4 consequences correct, congratulations. That is the basic principles that applied behavioral analysis is based on. All right, moving on. Competency check number 2. Name 3 functions of behavior. All right, if you said attention, escape avoidance, and automatic reinforcement, then you got the second question correct. People engage in behaviors to obtain something, to avoid or get out of something, or automatic reinforcement, which is not socially mediated. Congratulations, that's another big principle of applied behavioral analysis. And lastly, competency check number 3. Name 2 methods for conducting a functional behavioral assessment. And if you said interview and direct observation, then you are correct. Most practitioners in an applied setting will use interview, surveys, and direct observations in the natural setting to develop hypothesis statements about why problem behaviors occur. Alright, thanks for watching this module, and we hope you learned about problem behaviors.